Republican President Edgar Lungu has called on cooperating partners to come on board and help address the issue of floods in the country. Konkola Copper Mines KCM has clarified that the earlier announced 1,000 supposed pay rise for its workers is not a salary increment. Republican President Edgar Lungu has called on cooperating partners to come on board and help the country in addressing the issues of floods that have left many families displaced. President Lungu says the government is doing all it can to rehabilitate the infrastructure that has been destroyed due to the heavy rains. Speaking when Japanese ambassador to Zambia, Rita Mizuchi, called on him at State House, President Lungu said the government is also doing everything possible to ensure that those who have been displaced are relocated. The president says government is however looking up to Japan to help Zambia with better practices on how to avoid disasters. He is of the view that Japan is experienced in disaster management and preparedness, stressing that it is better placed to see how it can give Zambia better practices on this issue. And President Edgar Lungu has commended the Japanese ambassador to Zambia for taking time to go around the country to see the challenges the people are facing. President Lungu states that the rains have nevertheless come with relief to others because it will give the Zambian people food while others are experiencing floods, leaving their crops in total disaster. The head of state is hopeful that the rains will be able to fuel up the dams so as to generate hydropower.
It's going to give us the food in agriculture, rain-fed crops. Secondly, we hope that our water we'll be able to fill dams and we'll be able to generate hydro energy.
Exactly.
That's the positive side. But then there's the negative side, as you have already said. Infrastructure has been destroyed, crops have been destroyed, and we're battling to see how we can rehabilitate and resettle our people. And I think it's opportune for us to call upon friends and well-meaning partners across the globe to help us. And we would like to believe that with the experience in disaster preparedness in Japan, we're better placed to see how you can give us better practices and best practices on account of this experience. We have a number of activities going on between the Japanese private sector, and we are watching over those and hoping that a good number of them will come to fruition very soon. I'm very interested in the solar energy project which is being done in the western part of Zambia. It's going to give us the food in agriculture.
And speaking earlier, Mr. Mizuchi has expressed sympathy to the families who have lost their agricultural produce, among others due to the floods experienced during the 2019-2020 farming season. Mr. Mizuchi says he is ready to work closely with the Zambian government in strengthening the bilateral relations between the two countries.
Relations to you last December, the Zambian government, particularly the protocol, has made every effort to grant me many occasions to meet with various cabinet ministers, and for that I'm very grateful. Also, I want to express my sympathy to those people who have been affected by the recent heavy rainfall. And I hope that they will be back to normal life quite soon. On this occasion, I would like to express my hope that I will be able to work closely with you, Excellency, to strengthen our friendly relations between Zambia.
Meanwhile, President Edgar Lungu has expressed concern at the low pace in which some agreements signed between Angola and Zambia are being implemented. Speaking when Angolan ambassador to Zambia, Azevedo Xavier, paid a courtesy call on him, President Lungu was, however, hopeful that with the coming of the new ambassador to Zambia, more agreements will be implemented as soon as possible.
And this phase is implementation. Of course, we have done some implementation in respect of some agreements, I know. but not much has been done. I can talk of the Rivungu Canal in Western Province. I can talk of the road being done, trying to open up Shangombo into Angola, Canabo. There could be a few more, but suffice to say that we have not done enough.
Existe mais alguma outras coisas, mas queira aqui salientar que não está a ser feito para o nosso
So if you're coming, I'm sure that we implement as much or as many of these agreements as possible.
Com a tua vinda aqui, temos a certeza que vamos implementar o máximo.
You are a new group.
Dos derivados do mar,
In the area of
peixe,
the
sal, etc.
derivatives of the sea, like salt and fish,
Na área tanto da agricultura, na área da saúde, na área tanto das indústrias.
in the areas of industry and in the healthy sectors.
Portanto, capacitar algumas.
I'm just trying to mention in some.
Então, eu trago algumas propostas, portanto, concretas, para que, como eu disse antes, pudéssemos sair do papel para a prática.
So as I mentioned before, I'm bringing some proposals here so that we can move out of the documents to the practical.
Konkola Copper Mines KCM has clarified that the earlier announced 1,000 supposed pay rise for its workers is not a salary increment but an educational allowance. KCM Provisional Liquidator Milingolungu says management received several union representation who disclosed that their membership had been struggling to send their children to school. Ms. Lungu states that government management therefore found it best that as a way of giving relief to its unionized workers, it awards them 1,000 education allowance. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Lungu has since wondered in what relation are some people calling the allowance a mockery of a salary increment. Mr. Lungu notes that as a block figure, the 1,000 educational allowance is actually much more than KCM has previously awarded to its employees. He says most salary increments at KCM have in fact only ranged between 300 kwacha to 500 kwacha in terms of absolute figures.
Some people are saying it's a mockery, but in relation to what? Because as a block figure, it's much more than KCM previously has awarded to its employees. Most salary increments have ranged between 300 to 500 kwacha if you look in terms of absolute figures or absolute terms. And I think you can also compare that figure in terms of absolute numbers with other companies, mining companies, both on the Copper Belt and the Northwestern Province. So, but what is also more important that I've also got a responsibility to be prudent with the resources of the company. KCM is in financial distress, so we cannot give salary increments to the scale that the workers or indeed ourselves will want to give. So it's important also to bear in mind that we are undergoing financial distress and practically, we need to reinvest in the mine. However, obviously the employees are one of our biggest stakeholders, and it's important that we maintain morale for us to be able to achieve our number.
And Mr. Milungo has insisted that the problems of financial distress in which KCM is in can only be resolved while it has an equity investor with the requisite financial muscle. The KCM Provisional Liquidator states that the mine currently needs a working capital of $1.7 million over a space of 3 to 5 years. He states that this entails that the earlier an equity investor with such financial muscle is found, the better.
The problems at KCM can only be resolved once we have an equity investor with the requisite financial muscle. And the earlier it is done, the better, because with every month that goes by, we still need to service debts which the data had accrued. ultimately the debts can only be fully settled once the mine is sold, and then using those sale proceeds, we settle the debt. That can only be done once the new equity investor comes, and obviously anyone who's looking to invest will also be looking at whether the asset is encumbered and whether we've got court matters and so on and so forth. So it's imperative that the court matters are settled in the shortest possible time, and it's also imperative that we get a buyer with the requisite financial muscle to develop the company to its full potential.
The Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, has engaged the Zambia Postal Service, Zampost, who are the owners of the ferry at Zamfia Harbour, to allow all political parties to use the facility. This follows a letter written by the National Democratic Congress, NDC, to the ECZ to complain about the ruling Patriotic Front alleged hire of the Chilovi ferry at Zamfia Harbour. NDC Vice President Joseph Akafumbo lamented in the letter that the hiring of the ferry was a serious electoral malpractice and abuse of office by the ruling party. In response, ECZ Acting Electoral Officer Royd Katongo expressed hope Zampost will comply and accord all political parties an opportunity to move from the mainland to the island. And NDC spokesperson Sabo Imboila has thanked the ECZ for responding favorably to her party's letter of a complaint. Ms. Imboila has told QTV News in an interview the NDC is hopeful that all political parties taking part in the Chilobi parliamentary by-elections will now be allowed to use the said ferry.
We had formally complained to the ECZ over the government stoppage of the ferry in Zamfia. So when we wrote to the ECZ, they didn't respond to us, so we had to follow up the letter, and this is a letter that we got today from the ECZ. So finally they've responded to us, and they're actually directing Mr. Wangwa, from Zamfia Harbour to ensure that all stakeholders are allowed the ferry. The ferry is the only way that all cars can get into Chilubi Island. There is no any other transport apart from the ferry. So we thank God that the ECZ has responded favorably, and we hope that the station manager, Mr. Wangwa, and everybody else that is in charge of this ferry at Zamfia border is going to get this directive and act accordingly. These are elections, and act by that whereby the government or the PF, whatever it is, because they keep on now saying it's not really the PF, it's the government, but it's a PF government. We have a PF that is in government at the moment, a PF party that is in government at the moment. So at the end of the day, we feel that this is a serious abuse of office and a serious electoral malpractice. No wonder we had to report to the ECZ. So with this now, we're very hopeful now that at least now the right thing is going to be done.
The Lusaka Province PF leadership has threatened to recommend expulsion of ordinary party member Emmanuel Chiluvanama for allegedly decampaigning the ruling party. The provincial leadership has since given Mr. Chiluvanama, who is also former State House Permanent Secretary, up to Friday, the 24th January 2020 to exonerate himself. In a letter dated 18th January 2020 obtained by Q News, PF Lusaka Province chairperson Paul Monga has asked Mr. Chiluvanama to appear before the Provincial Disciplinary Committee at exactly 10 hours. Mr. Monga has also told Mr. Chiluvanama to put his defense to allegations leveled against him in writing within 7 days as to why the Lusaka Province Committee should not recommend for his expulsion. Mr. Chiluvanama has been accused of, among other things, openly attacking the ruling PF with alleged intent to decampaign President Edgar Lungu. The letter of summon to appear before the Lusaka Province Disciplinary Committee has been copied to both President Edgar Lungu, the PF President, and Party Secretary General Davis Mwila. The opposition MMD has disclosed it will contest in any set of by-elections that arise before the 2021 general elections. MMD President Dr. Neves Mumba says his party has been unable to contest in the current round of by-elections because they came shortly after the November 5th, 2019 High Court judgment. Dr. Mumba has told QTV News that his party realized that it needed more time to mobilize and reorganize before it can participate in any by-election. He says he is thus very proud with the progress that has been made in Lusaka Province to mobilize the party's structures.
the next set of elections, by-elections, whenever they are coming, we are going to go into those elections and contest in those elections because we are an entity at the moment. We did not participate in the current round of by-elections because they came too close to the date of our court case and judgment. And we thought that we still needed time for ourselves to inspect our structures, which were doing very well. You were present to see the new structures or revived structures of Lusaka district. I'm very, very proud of our leaders, our chairman for Lusaka, who has worked extremely hard to get all the 7 constituencies populated with 24 members per executive committee. And I'm very, very proud of my leaders, and I think that this needs to be replicated across the country. So that's our focus, and that's our preoccupation.
The Pensions and Insurance Authority, PIA, has granted licenses to 317 insurance entities to conduct insurance businesses in the year 2020. PIA Communications Manager Doreen Kambanganji explains that of the 317 entities, 26 are insurance companies, 17 general insurance companies, and 9 are long-term insurance companies. Ms. Kambanganji has disclosed in a statement the authority has also licensed 3 reinsurance companies, 3 reinsurance brokers, 44 brokers, 222 agents, and 19 other intermediaries. She says that the PIA will continuously monitor and scrutinize the operations of all licensed entities, focusing on prudential supervision and market conduct in order to protect the interest of policyholders and beneficiaries.
The Pensions and Insurance Authority has granted licenses to 317 insurance entities. Of the 317 insurance entities, 26 insurance companies, of which 17 will be trading in general insurance, which is also called short-term insurance, and 9 will be trading in long-term insurance, which is also called life assurance. The authority has also licensed 3 reinsurance companies, 3 reinsurance brokers, 44 brokers, 222 agents, and 19 other intermediaries to operate in the insurance space. The Pensions and Insurance Authority will continuously monitor and scrutinize the operations of all licensed entities, focusing on prudential supervision and market conduct in order to protect the interest of policyholders and their beneficiaries.
And Ms. Kambanganji has disclosed that the insurance industry posted positive performance with combined gross written premiums of 3.33 billion kwacha as at 30th September 2019. Ms. Kambanganji says that general insurance recorded a gross written premium of 2.16 billion kwacha as at 30th September 2019 from 1.81 billion kwacha as at 30th September 2019. She says that this represents a growth of 20% over the review period, and that net assets general insurance business recorded an increase of $379 million that is million kwacha rather, from 374 million kwacha as at 31st December 2018, representing a 2% growth.
On a year-to-year basis, net assets grew by 5.5%. From 7.3 billion as at 30th September 2018 to 7.7 billion as at 30th September 2019. We also saw growth in investment income, which grew from 62 million from 30th June 2019 to 182 million as at 30th September 2019, representing a growth of 93%. And this can be mainly attributed to the gains that were earned in exchange gains. Performance with combined gross written premiums of 3.3 billion as at 30th September 2019. General insurance recorded gross written premium of 2.16 billion as at 30th September 2019 from 1.8 billion as at 30th September 2018. And this represents a growth of 20%, which shows that we are seeing growth in the insurance industry as well. In terms of long-term insurance, we saw that there was an increment of 23% over the period, and it grew from 947 million to 1.7 billion as at 30 September 2019.
The Food Reserve Agency, FRA, has clarified that there has been no adjustment to the prices of all its designated agricultural commodities. FRA Public Relations Coordinator John Chipandwe says the agency is still selling white maize at the old price of 111 kwacha per 50 kilograms a bag to vulnerable communities. Mr. Chipandwe has told Q News in a statement that as a strategic food reserve for the nation, the FRA is also still selling paddy rice at 80 kwacha per 40 kg bag and soybeans at 250 kwacha per 50 kg bag. He states that all stakeholders and the general public are therefore advised to take these as official notification and that any inconvenience is deeply regretted. Nominated Member of Parliament Raphael Nakachinda has supported the announcement by the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, that it will not sponsor any political party monitors for the verification process of the 2021 ballot papers in Dubai due to financial constraints. ECZ Chief Electoral Officer Patrick Nshindano is on record to have announced that the ECZ will not sponsor any stakeholders to verify the 2021 ballot papers in Dubai due to limited finances. Mr. Nakachinda states that there is nothing strange about the announcement by the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, further stating that the announcement is non-controversial in view of the current economic situation that the country is faced with. He has stressed that it is expected that interested stakeholders sponsor themselves to monitor the verification of ballot papers rather than always expect free travels that are sponsored. Meanwhile, Mr. Nakachinda has expressed concern that ECZ has continued to have ballot papers printed outside the country, despite various advocacy from stakeholders for the government printers to be capacitated and be able to print ballot papers locally.
We find the proposition to be something that is non-controversial in view of the economic situation that the country is faced with. But I think an addition is that what is of great concern to us is a continued printing of ballot papers outside the Zambian jurisdiction. We have always advocated, why don't we capacitate Zambian government printers to be able to print ballot papers within Zambia. It's just that we have been politicking around that issue. And when government has indicated political will to have that done, you've noticed political players, particularly from the opposition, some of us making statements that are unfortunate, suggesting that actually printing ballot papers within Zambia may not be secure, security issues may not be secured, and it may give an advantage, quote unquote, to the ruling party. Hence our inclination to have those things printed out of the country. For me, there was no need for us to even be worrying about people traveling to whatever place to go and monitor the printing of ballot papers. If we had achieved having government printers capacitated to print ballot papers within Zambia.
Parliamentarians have been urged against leaving out from the Constitution the submissions made by stakeholders to the Parliamentary Select Committee on the proposed amendment to the Constitutional Bill 10, saying they will be held accountable. A concerned citizen, Joe Kamtuma, has observed that if parliamentarians do not include the recommendations that have been submitted to the Parliamentary Select Committee, they risk being decampaigned regardless of their political affiliation. Mr. Kamtuma has since advised the lawmakers to ensure that all submissions that have been made are not treated as an option. He says it is so far clear from the submissions made that the Parliamentary Select Committee now knows what people want to be contained in the Constitution.
Otherwise, if they don't consider those 16 items that were removed, then we will hold all parliamentarians. We don't say MMD, PF, UPND will hold you accountable and will go to your constituencies and decampaign you so that 2021 you don't go back in offices. Can we start behaving with the interest of Zambians, We don't want people going to parliament behaving on partisan lines. No, we want people that are going to go to parliament and represent the views of Zambia. We know that the process was not embraced by all people. We know that where we are, a lot of people have expressed anxiety. It's the history that surrounds the constitutional making process. But what we are saying is that we have a limping constitution. We have elections coming in 2021. We need to begin to do things that will prepare us to have a smooth election. For example, the period in which you do a petition has been revisited. The issue of the Public Order Act has been looked at. And these are the things that make us not breathe well. For instance, those of you that are mothers, you know that when you give birth, no matter how much you love the child, the newly born baby, doctors will slap the baby to see if it has life. What am I saying? This is a constitution we are making. We want to also to know if it has life. Can it cry? Is it responsive to the issues of the Zambian people? You know that Zambians, as we stand right now, the issues that are in the constitution also has a bearing on how we behave as a country. So if in the constitution there's a mismatch, then even economically we are down. We know that we need an expanded Bill of Rights. At the moment we don't have it. Failed. It flopped because we decampaigned it in 2016.
The Zambia Association of Youth Contractors and Suppliers has called on Ministry of Higher Education to reverse the decision by Africa Development Bank to award the 14.4 million kwacha contract to Chinese company to construct 2 lecturers' theatres at the University of Zambia. Association Acting President Ibrahim Mwamba has warned that if the contract is not given to any local contractor, he will call on all local contractors across the country to protest against the Chinese company. Mr. Mwamba says failure to which government should give conditions to the Chinese company that will benefit students in the country. He has told QTV News in an interview that that local contractors benefit from the 20% subcontracting policy. Mr. Mwamba says President Edgar Lungu's directive is very clear that all projects costing below 30 million kwacha must be given to Zambian contractors. He has asked the Higher Education Minister, Brian Mushimba, to tell the cooperating partners to adhere to the presidential directive as opposed to defending them.
So that's a big insult, Dr. Brian Mushimba, to the people of Zambia. And the only thing which you are going to help us is maybe the president should correct himself to the people of Zambia and come out in a clear way of saying that other contracts worth 30 million should go to Chinese firm. But I can tell you that our president is a president who research, our president is a president who cannot be misled by his own people. That's why I'm appealing to the National Construction Council of Zambia, Mr. Matthews Ngurube, to the presidential advisor in policy, project monitoring and implementation, Mr. Andrew Chela. And also I'm appealing to ZPPA. And I'm appealing again to the Minister of Higher Education to look into this and award that contract to the Zambian contractor. We won't rest. I can assure you that if this contract won't be given to a Zambian, we shall call all the local contractors in this country to protest against that Chinese who's going to build. It's either government should give a condition that will benefit our students in this country, that Zambia has got a way of doing things. They should not insult us of talking about criteria that disadvantage the local contractors.
Mumbai Central Member of Parliament Credo Nanjwa has appealed to government to consider increasing the allocation of relief food to his constituency to avert the hunger situation which he said is escalating. Mr. Nanjwa says the current 700 bags that government is sending to the district through the DMMU every month is not enough as the hunger situation has escalated. The lawmaker says the delays in the delivery of the relief food has also contributed to the escalation of the hunger situation as there is inconsistency which is leading to the people going hungry for some time. And Mr. Nanjwa has noted with concern that the delivery of the relief food and maize for selling by the Food Reserve Agency is commendable. He has recommended on the need to increase the quantity of the relief food being delivered and consistency to be upheld. Kawambo district has received 500 litres of pesticides for controlling 4 armyworms that have invaded some maize fields. Kawambo Acting District Agricultural Coordinator Stephen Msonda says the pesticides have been distributed to the affected farmers in all 29 agricultural camps. Ms. Msonda states that the district requires about 2,000 litres of pesticides for spraying the over 500 hectares of maize fields affected by the army worms. He says the area is also expecting to receive another consignment of the same quantity of chemicals this week. And a prominent small-scale farmer in the area, Chansa Kabamba, has thanked government for early distribution of farming inputs and pesticides to the district this farming season. Mr. Kabamba has also appealed to government to equip camp extension officers with motorbikes to enable them visit and provide services to the increasing number of farmers in the district. And finally in our news, a 13-year-old girl of Shimano area in Kayama district of Western Province who recently made it to grade 8 has reportedly been defiled and impregnated by the brother-in-law. This came to light when the victim, in the company of her mother, went to complain at the social welfare office at Mukuye in Nkeyama district. In an interview with Zani's Social Welfare Assistant Programs Officer, Sibeso Sikananu confirmed to have received a case in which a minor was defiled and impregnated by the brother-in-law. Mrs. Skananu explained that her office is following up on the matter to find out how it was possible for the young girl to be defiled and impregnated by the brother-in-law while the sister was sleeping in the same room. She said the family got suspicious because the brother-in-law tried to have the girl terminate the pregnancy through herbs. Mrs. Kananu added that the girl was also beaten on the back and she was rushed to Mukuye Zonal Clinic for a medical checkup. And medical personnel at Mukoye Zonal Clinic, Desai Nalelakwande, confirmed in a telephone interview with Zanis to have received a minor of about 13 years who was defiled. He said that the young girl is 5 weeks pregnant and they will monitor the pregnancy. On that note, we end the news.